The Monster Hunter franchise is pretty notorious for having settings and mechanics very much so hidden within the game, whilst World does a much better job of illuminating these than other entries. There are still so many useful and quality of life tips and features that are hidden. In this video, we're going to go over a list I have whipped up of all of the most useful tips, tricks, and quality of life features that should hopefully help improve your overall Monster Hunter World experience, whether you're a new, returning, or veteran hunter. I'm Light It Up Dan, and on the channel I love to produce content that aims to reduce the overwhelm and unknown of the Monster Hunter games. If you haven't caught any of my event roundups or weapon overview videos, there is something there for everyone. Very quickly, a massive thank you to all of you who have really turned up and gotten us to around 80% of unsubscribed viewers on the channel. With the majority of you returning, if you do enjoy the videos, do subscribe. I'm aiming to get that down to 50%. And with that said, let's get to it. Affinity is a term that you're going to see throughout the game. What it means is critical chance. Why they didn't say critical chance is up to anyone's guess. I think Capcom just hates us, but mostly you. Affinity will be presented alongside a percentage, which is your percentage chance to get the critical strike, whereby your attack will do 25% increased raw damage, shown by a flash and a small diamond on the damage number. Both the percentage chance and the amount of critical damage you can do can be increased via skills in the game. Maybe you already knew about affinity, but do you know about negative affinity? You might have seen various weapons that have this and have just thought, well, okay, it's just a 0% chance that I'll get a crit. Or I need to get more levels of critical eye to get it into a positive affinity chance. No, not just that. Negative affinity is actually your chance to get a blunder, the opposite of a critical strike. While crits have a 25% increase of raw damage, blunders have a 25% decrease of raw damage. An anti-crit. Your chance to get this will be the amount of negative affinity that you've got. So if you've got minus 20% affinity, you've got a 20% chance to get a blunder. Something you definitely want to avoid. Weapons and monsters can have elemental affinities in the game. You may have also heard that elemental isn't much of a big deal in World, which is correct. Raw is king. But perhaps you've checked your hunter's notes against various monsters and seen that they've got 3 stars of weakness to a specific element. So you're scratching your head thinking, how can this be? Well, did you know that the star rating for the elemental weakness is given relatively to the monster's other elemental weaknesses, and really is only referencing the monster's weak spot as well? That means that a monster with 3-star elemental weakness might not even be particularly weak to it at all. It's just maybe 2% weaker to it than it is another element. When it comes to World, Capcom really did elemental dirty. If you've done even just a few hunts, you will notice that monsters have roars, and that they're annoying as shit. As well as making you enrage IRL, these roars will typically stun you for a period of up to a couple of seconds. What you may not know is that these roars act as a sort of attack. This means that you're able to block, roll, counter, iframe, and just generally dodge them. You can even use them to proc various skills like Offensive Guard. As irritating as they can be, especially if you've been playing the game for a little while, you can also flip them to your advantage. Gathering is a core part of the Monster Hunter World experience. Whether you're mining at a node, gathering some herbs and plants, or carving up a monster you've just defeated in a hunt, when you press the button to interact and perform the gather, you can actually hold it down so you go through the whole cycle of the gathering process. This speeds up the whole process so much because your animation is no longer stopping and starting. Do you see what I mean? I'm pretty sure this isn't mentioned anywhere in the game. You just have to kind of stumble upon it or be told about it. Kind of nutso in the ballso. Somewhat of a neat Easter egg, there are certain monsters that you're able to gather from when they're toppled over. With your capture net, you can grab the bugs off Zenoga's back. That one I think is explained somewhere, but did you know when Uragans and when Radabans are toppled that you can mine off them as well? The Uragan netting you ores, and the Radaban netting you bones. Fairly early into the game, as you're progressing through, you will be able to buy yourself a power and armor charm from the provision stockpile merchant. By keeping these in your active item pouch, they will provide a permanent buff of +6 attack and +12 defense respectively. You can also combine these with a Basilgeuse Talon to create a power talon and armor talon, which give you 9 attack and 18 defense respectively. In addition addition to this, the charms and talons do stack with each other. So with a power charm, a power talon, an armor charm, and an armor talon, you can get plus 15 attack and plus 30 defense permanently just by having these 4 items in your active item pouch. They do not, however, stack with multiple copies of each other. There are specific items whose entire purpose is only to be sold for money. These are known as trade-in items. If you've been taking advantage of the Argosy, or perhaps answering SOS flares or joining other people's quests that they've posted, or perhaps running certain events where it's part of the quest rewards, you may be sitting on a big stack of trade-in items, especially if you didn't know about this at all, worth a ton of zenny. So periodically in your item box, just check that you can sell your trade-in items. It'll let you know if you've got any to sell or not. Did you know you can also sell your excess monster parts for lots of money as well if you need it? This can be a fantastic way to quickly inject a ton of zenny, especially handy when it comes to upgrading your armors, particularly so after lifting the upgrade cap with augmentation. That gets expensive. Ever tried the lock-on and just thought, this doesn't feel right, something about this is really weird, I don't like it, I'm not going to use it? You're not alone. The focus mode lock-on does suck. What you may not have realized is there's a much better lock-on that is tucked away, hidden in the settings. In options, head over to the third tab, the camera tab, and then the second page over. Here, if you change the camera style from the default focus camera over to target camera, when you lock on to the monster, it will no longer follow the monster around with the camera. Instead, you can recenter the camera with a click of RB or R1, letting you effectively play the best of both worlds. And now moving your right stick to look around with the camera no longer breaks your lock on either. While you're here, you can also change your target settings from being on all monsters to being on large monsters only. So you no longer need to cycle through all the small little monsters that are nearby, instead only allowing you to lock onto large monsters. Are you tired of managing all of your items each hunt, and the different weapons and pieces of armor and skills that you want to use as well? Have no fear, you can actually save multiple item loadouts that you may want to use for various different situations, and even multiple gear loadouts as well. If you enjoy using multiple weapons like I really do, you don't want to be remaking your build every single time you want to try out a different weapon. As well as editing your item loadouts, you can even change your radial shortcut items as well, including adding crafting items during a hunt, which you may not have even known that you can do at all, to a radial slot. Incredibly useful for various bowgun builds that are maybe using ammo like sticky or spread 3, for example, where you can craft more ammo on the fly as you're going, and can even be implemented for items as well, allowing you to bypass the 2 max potion limit, for example, by allowing you to craft more on the fly. Also known as cheating. You make me sick. Tired of checking back after each hunt to see if you've got the materials you needed to make that gear? Of course you are, that sounds exhausting. Wishlist it instead. The game will help you keep track of what gear you're able to make with the materials that you have. Much easier than checking back every single time. Boosting your elemental resistance can give you a little bit of damage mitigation against various monsters' attacks. As we mentioned earlier, elemental isn't really a big deal in world at all anyhow. But what's really useful to note about it is when you get 20 or more of an elemental resistance, you automatically get that elemental blight immunity as well. For example, getting to 20 ice resist will mean that you'll have ice blight immunity. Pretty useful to keep in mind. You'll notice there are different sharpness levels on weapons that increases as you get further into the game, which are denoted by different colors as well. In addition to properties like not bouncing off monsters as much, they also have a corresponding damage multiplier associated as well. So it might be the case that a lower attack rating weapon that has a higher sharpness level, such as purple, the maximum one, may output more damage than a higher attack rating weapon with lower sharpness. Yellow is your standard 1 damage multiplier, lower down orange is 0.75 and the minimum red is 0.5, higher up green is 1.05, blue 1.2, white 1.32, and purple 1.39. A big takeaway from this is that white and purple sharpness are really powerful. During your hunts, when you open up your map and you see all of the gathering nodes for the various materials, you can actually set your scout flies to track them, leading you directly to the location of something you found before. Super useful when you're looking for something in particular, or you're doing one of those gathering quests for those special collection nodes. It isn't always immediately obvious when a monster is enraged, which is pivotal pivotal information, as use of your clutch claw requires the monster not to be so. Looking over to your minimap, if the monster's icon is flashing red, that is your indication that the monster is enraged. There are other tells such as its moveset, its attack frequency, stuff like that. But if you're not quite familiar with a monster yet, that's a surefire quick way to tell. Whenever a monster is limping, its heart rate is very low, as in almost flatlining. Or there are skulls showing next to its icon when you've got enough research on the monster. These are all indications that the monster is now capturable. Very useful to keep in mind if you want to capture the monster for whatever reason, you heretic. We're slay only in this house. There's a training area you can head over to, either from your house or by the palico in that little hut area in Celiana, which is a fantastic way, combined with your hunter's notes, to learn and master weapons. Anytime I want a refresher, I will take myself over to the training area and relearn all of the combos at my leisure without the pressure of a hunt. A question I get asked a lot in my shorts is, how do I change the training area to that cart? By speaking to the housekeeper palico that's in the training area, you can select change object, changing it from that weird ass pillar to a much more useful cart resembling a monster. You're going to need to farm a lot of drops from guiding land monsters, especially if you want to do weapon augmentation for multiple different weapons. This can be a bit of a pain in the ass because you're going to need quite a lot of quite a few different materials. But did you know that if you have one level of the geologist skill on your build, you'll actually be able to pick up the shinies twice? This makes farming all those Zenoga parts and Namiel parts so much quicker and easier. You'll be stockpiling your weapon augmentation mats in no time. This does only work in guiding lands, however. Regular shiny drops outside of guiding lands are not impacted. Hopefully this has been helpful with illuminating some of these hidden tips that should help you along in your monster hunter journey. Did you already know all of these? Are any of them going to be really useful for you? Do you know of any more hidden tips? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. As mentioned at the start, you folks have really turned up and gotten us to around 80% of unsubscribed viewers on the channel, with the majority of you returning. If you enjoy the videos, do subscribe. I'm aiming to get that down to 50%. If you're looking for an open, mature community that plays Monster Hunter World and Rise across all different platforms together, come and join the Discord. Let's get some sessions going. I also run open lobbies during the live streams over here on YouTube and on Twitch. I will leave all of these links in the description for you. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you in the new world.